Assalamu alaikum, peace be with you. Hello, I'm your brother in faith, Shabir Ally, with 30 life-changing books. And today we're dealing with book number 4. So this book is entitled Lessons from the Stories of the Quran. It's written by Ali Musa Raza Muhajir with a foreword by D.M. Hamidullah, Dr. M. Muhammad Hamidullah. Now, this book is unique. I've had it for a long time. You can see it's been tattered with much use. It gives us the stories from the Quran, stories of various prophets, starting with Adam and going all the way down to Jesus, on whom be peace. And it doesn't just simply give us the stories, but it also tells us about the lessons that could be derived from the stories. And in addition to that, it also compares the stories with the way in which the prophets are depicted in the Bible. And often we can see that in the biblical depiction, the stories which, the lessons which are easily derivable from the Quranic depiction are not found in the biblical depiction. So if we think of, for example, about the story of Noah, spending a lot of time preaching to his people, pleading with them to accept the message that has come from God, and only when eventually the people refuse so adamantly to listen to the message of God, to the extent that they even plot to take the life of God's prophet, Nuh alayhi salam, that is when God sent the flood to wipe out those people. But in the biblical description, one does not get the idea that Nuh alayhi salam is going through this whole preaching, and it looks like God is just simply angry with the world and he causes the flood, because the book of Genesis has a different idea about what is the reason for the corruption on the earth, about the sons of God mating with the daughters of women and the daughters of men and giving rise to the giants of old. And God says, I will not, my spirit will not put up with man forever. And then he decides to wipe them out. In the Quranic depiction, it looks like this is not a universal flood covering the whole world, but it's only a punishment targeting those persons who were trying to take the life of God's messenger, that is the prophet Noah. But in the Bible, it is shown to be a universal flood. So with comparisons like this, this author brings out the lessons from the Quran in a very unique way. And he shows the relevance of the Quranic stories for our lives at present by showing us what are the lessons that derive from these stories. So not just simply stories for our enjoyment, but also for our edification in our present moment. Often the author takes a rational approach to the way in which the stories can be told or understood. So for example, dealing with the story of Adam, alayhi salam, when Adam is being told, do not approach this tree, the author says, well, this could be the tree of life. And what must have been meant here is not a tree that bears a kind of fruit that you eat, but this must be a euphemism for intimate relations. So the promise that the devil might have made to Adam and his wife is that if you do certain things, then you will get children, and that will start your genealogical tree. And this is how you as humans will become immortal. The message from God obviously was disobeyed in that whole process, and that was the problem. It's not that they ate from a tree that bears a fruit, but the mention of tree here was a euphemism for intimate relations. And then he quotes various verses of the Quran that deal with that. Like he says, for example, just as the Quran says to them, God says to them in the Quran, God forbade you this tree. Similarly in the Quran, we are told, do not go near to fornication, and do not go near to indecencies, do not go, and so on. And the term shajara, which means a tree, literally, he shows can be used as a euphemism. And tasting from the tree, the term taste does not necessarily mean literally to eat, but we have, for example, in the Quran, they shall not taste death therein, that is death in the life in paradise. So tasting death, there's the idea of tasting death, and tasting of a torment, according to the Quran. They will not taste cold in paradise, and so on. So various ways in which we can see that the word is used, but not in the literal sense. So he is pleading with us to not take the stories in an ultra-literalist manner, but rather we should see the essence and we should see the purpose behind the stories and the lessons that they bring out for us. So in a similar way, when he comes to the story of Abraham, he goes into detail about the sacrifice that he was about to perform involving his son. And he shows us that there are lessons to be learned from that incident. It is not just simply a story for us to enjoy, but we should think about our own lives and about the sacrifice that God is demanding of us to make in our own lives. And as much as Abraham was willing to give up that which he loved for the sake of God, we also will be required to give up what we love for the sake of God. He looks at the story of Lut alayhi salam, the prophet Lot, and the guests that arrived with him. He looks at the story of Ismail in detail as one of the prophets of God, and how God described him as one of the righteous prophets who used to enjoin prayer upon his family, the story of Jacob, and so on. And now, the important thing about this book, and why we would need this side by side with the Quran, is that often when you read the Quran, you find the stories of the prophets scattered throughout the Quran, a little bit told here, a little bit told in another chapter of the Quran. And you would have to try and piece all of these elements together to form the continuous story in your own mind. And for that reason, Muslims have been attracted since time immemorial to books which are known in Arabic as Qasasul Anbiya, stories of the prophets. And many such books have been written. They're a traditional sort of book, and they take a traditional attitude, a literalist type of attitude towards the interpretation of those stories. And what is different about this book is that not only does it give us those stories that we need so badly to understand the Quran as a whole, but it takes a sort of rational stance towards those stories. And it also compares the stories from the Quran with those of the Bible and brings out the lessons of the Quran that way. Now, is there something that I don't like about the book? Well, again, anything that is rational for one person may not be so rational for the other person, but it is important that we encourage that kind of rational thinking. And though I may differ with the author on some of his conclusions and some of his rational inquiry, nonetheless, the idea of the rational inquiry itself, I highly praise and value. This has meant a lot to me. It has actually changed my life, reading this book again and again, and I hope that it will have an impact on you as well. Perhaps it will even change your life. So that's my book review for today. Tomorrow, I will deal with a different sort of book. It is a book that gives us a history of how the Quran came to be revealed to our Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, and then compiled into the volume that we now hold. That has been very important to me as well. And I hope that you will find that important and of relevance to you. Assalamu alaikum, peace be with you.
When did you start watching Let the Quran Speak? A year ago? 5, 10, 20 years ago? So many of you message us and comment and email us to tell us how much Let the Quran Speak means to you. You tell us you were disillusioned with Islam, but we've helped you return. You tell us you became Muslim after watching our show. We hear from people who knew about Muslims only from the media and have found their misperceptions shattered. We hear from people who disagree with us, but respect and admire us for the values we represent. We get requests from chaplains, teachers, and journalists. Let the Quran Speak has grown tremendously. From a no-frills, volunteer-driven side project, we've built a strong team and developed expertise in video production. We've been on TV for 20 years now. We're thriving on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Every year, thousands of hours go into research, writing, producing, and editing. Over the last 2 years, we've diversified our content, producing short films, documentaries, and video essays. Our operations were limited during COVID, but we've continued to produce new content and new episodes. But there's still so much more we can do. We want to take Let the Quran Speak to the next level. We want to build a specialized studio, which will serve as a creative hub for Muslims in the arts. We want to engage the best and brightest creative talent. We want to go out into the community and tell stories about Muslims from all walks of life. We can't do it without you. Your support has been instrumental in helping us advance. And now we're reaching out to you again. We need your help to continue growing. This Ramadan, we are launching a campaign to raise $170,000. We have around 170,000 subscribers on YouTube. If each person gave as little as $1, we would be well positioned to advance Let the Quran Speak. If you enjoy our content and think our work is important, we invite you to join our journey. Empower us to showcase Muslims' lives. Help us share the message of Islam in a way that people can connect with and understand. Support us today, and together we can take Let the Quran Speak to the next level. Your contribution is tax deductible and zakat eligible. Most importantly, you will get a share in the reward from God. May God bless you and your loved ones with the very best always, and may you draw ever closer to God this Ramadan.